The final Mission Impossible movie is now out, The Final Reckoning, and I have some thoughts on it, so let's talk about it. Now, for starters, I do think that this is a solid ending to the franchise. It was able to flash back to previous events that has happened before and able to tie them all together, so it feels like we come full circle in a way. And of course, it's a Mission Impossible movie. The action scenes, the stunts performed by Tom Cruise are the best parts of the film. The action scenes have always been a standout in this franchise, and Tom Cruise, for his insane stunts that he's willing to do, his stunts that he does just proves why Tom Cruise is a daredevil. He's crazy sometimes, and this movie with that plane scene kind of just proves that, because Tom Cruise, you're insane. The plot was able to conclude everything set up in Dead Reckoning, aka Part 1. Now, I'm a big fan of Dead Reckoning, and I'm glad they found a way to wrap up that story and conclude it in a way that felt satisfying enough. The second half of this movie is exactly what Mission Impossible is. Everything that you love about the franchise, everything that has been a standout to you about the franchise, it's all in the last hour and a half or hour of the film. The action scenes are great. The story is great. Just everything you loved about Mission Impossible, everything that makes Fallout and all these other movies in this franchise so good is in that last act of the film, is in that last portion of the film, and is what truly saved this movie. Because without that final act, man, will this movie have been a stinker. But before I dive into that, if you want to help me reach my goal of 1K by the end of the year, consider hitting that subscribe button, and let's go on. So on that note, the first half of this movie is extremely slow. Made this movie almost the worst one of the entire franchise. So without that second act, this movie would be the worst of the franchise. This franchise was getting better and better after each installment. Even rewatching the films for this movie, I was able to notice that each film got better and better and better. Because each installment improved on the problems of the last one and made all the great moments even better. So each installment got better and better and better. While you get to this movie, and you see the first half of the film, and you're like, what are we doing here? This is how you want to end your franchise? What are we doing? This is extremely slow. And thankfully for that second act, it completely saved the movie. And just the first 20 to 30 minutes of the movie felt rushed and confusing. They were going from plot beat to plot beat and really wanted to get this plot going, even though we had a full part 1 to kind of flesh out the story. It felt like part 2, we're missing the first hour of the film because they really just wanted to get the plot going. So you have moments where a certain character tells Tom Cruise to go somewhere, and then we cut to him already there. And then he's only there for like 3 minutes until we cut somewhere else just to get the plot going. It felt extremely rushed in the first 20 minutes, and I was like, if this is the whole movie, man, will this thing feel choppy. And that first 20 minutes really threw me off, and then the rest of that first half of the film was very slow. And the quality from part 1 to part 2 are extremely different. If you're trying to watch them both back to back as this 6-hour-long journey that Tom Cruise, Ethan Hunt goes on, you're not going to get that experience of a part 1 and 2. They feel like two completely different stories. They feel like two completely different movies, but just pieces of the story tied together with that key for the submarine. That's the only thing and that story beat really connecting the two together. These movies don't play off each other, which makes me feel like they wrote part 1 but had no idea what to do with part 2, because that's why the first half of this movie feels so slow. Because it feels like part 1 should not have been a part 1. It should have been a full story, because this movie very much plays it off as that way. The best part of this movie, the second act, still does feel extended out as if they're trying to drag it into a movie format. You could have very much easily taken everything in this movie that you needed to and put it in Dead Reckoning, taking all the slow bits out of Dead Reckoning and putting it in the Final Reckoning, because it very much feels like the first half of this movie, they're dragging it out. That's why it's so slow, because they don't know what to do with this movie, because they wanted it just to be a part 1 and 2 for the sake of having it as a part 1 and 2. They did not know what to do. They did not know what to do next after part 1, which is why the quality of the movies are drastically different, because they had no idea what to do. They didn't write it all together as a 6-hour-long journey. They wrote it just to get some extra money out for a cash grab, because these movies don't play off each other, which is disappointing. I wanted more of a part 2 and a part 1 journey, but instead part 2 feels very much dragged out for the sake of having a part 2, making the movie come off as completely wasted. A wasted final movie in the Mission Impossible franchise, and a wasted potential for part 1 and part 2 journey. It needed to be way better for the ending of this franchise and as a part 2. So overall, Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning has an extremely slow start at the beginning that you question if the rest of the movie is going to be good. You're going to start thinking it's the worst of the franchise until that final act kicks into play and it completely saves the movie. It's very much clear that part 1 was a separate story and part 2 is a separate story, and they don't really connect with each other. But although this is one of the weakest films in the franchise, it's still solid thanks to that second act. First half, very slow. You're probably not going to like it, but just wait till that second act. It's going to save the film for you. Anyways, if you like this video, maybe these ones on the side with you too. Like, subscribe. See you guys next time. Goodbye.